I sent her an email.
You say something was wrong with her arm.
Okay, so I'm like, I don't remember. You see, you scared me. I'm like, I know I was in my mind. Recollection.
How are you? 1 minute.
They just put these out early. They for our next meeting.
Yeah, we just put this stuff out for the next meeting because Michelle's out today.
That's good.
Just so everybody knows Michelle's sick.
Oh.
She's got the flu and strep. So hopefully she'll be better sometime soon, but we don't know. We did go ahead and put stuff out for the other meeting, and then I don't know if y'all done the call on the weather stuff. It's on good as well, but hopefully that's
They're gonna be presentations.
if there's a danger of it being tomorrow, not Thursday. So it doesn't. I don't think there's any risk of Thursday's meeting being affected by it, but I know it's tough sometimes. And yes. Oh, were you? What year was that? That you were like,
Oh, it's tonight?
Is it tonight?
oh yeah? Still up?
Okay. Yes, I'll go.
What time is it?
Been a while.
I gotta go to Tammy's company. Tammy's company has a
I'm not there in months. So I just I think we'll be done in time to get there. They're gonna tonight go over the real-time crime center. And then the art.
What's that process?
close by.
Okay, so you got a sub list of ones that communicate.
Huh?
So usually there's a lot of
Oh, I ain't even see. Okay. All right. I wait until you come in. All right.
what does it look like? It takes that down.
Okay.
Well, we're working on that list.
Don't let it.
Yeah, the Second Amendment of private use.
Bringing this out?
Young Weaver, I got a book for you.
Ready? Okay. Say, Victor, since she moving around, you can do it, okay? Please. Okay, you ready, Jeff? Okay. The time is now 2:04. The Long Range Planning Committee is called to order.
We'll do a quick roll call. And can I just confirm, we are recording, right, from the, Tom?
Huh?
You give us just a sec. I'm just confirming that the control room is recording. I believe it is, but I just want to make sure if they can give us a thumbs up.
We don't have to.
Okay, Commissioner Cothran,
Present?
Commissioner Epperson,
Present.
Commissioner Lazarus, Commissioner Thomas,
Present.
Commissioner Crackman,
Here.
and Commissioner Gage Watts is not present right now, so that means that you have 5 of 6 committee members present. That does constitute a quorum.
Okay. Commissioner Epperson will be doing the invocation. Correction. Commissioner Thomas will be doing the invocation, and Commissioner Epperson will be doing the Pledge of Allegiance.
If everyone would please bow their heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to gather here today to handle the business of our parish. We do ask you for your wisdom, your guidance as we navigate these issues that are so important to the residents of the parish of Caddo. In your Son Jesus' name, we thank you, and all together said amen.
Amen. Let us all face the flag. I would ask that all military and veterans would render the standard hand to brow salute. All others, right hand across your hearts. And as we repeat the pledge, please remember our POWs and MIAs.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any agenda additions?
Mr. Chairman, I have one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have an agenda addition to discuss a resolution of support for House Bill 6. I have provided the committee members a copy of this, but I would like to add that to the agenda, and it can go after previous discussions if possible.
Second.
Properly moved second. Do we need to vote? Public hearing. Open for
Yes.
public hearing.
At this point, we need to make sure that you open a public hearing and ask anybody who might be in favor of or in opposition to expanding the agenda to include this item, if they would come present.
Okay. This edition is open for public hearing. Is there anyone present for or against this edition? Oh,
Okay, seeing no one, would you like to close the public hearing at this point?
so moved.
Okay, and now we will do a roll call vote on expanding the agenda. This is just to add this item to the agenda. And if you're ready, I'll go ahead and begin. Okay, Commissioner Cothran,
Yes.
Commissioner Epperson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Crackman, and Commissioner Gage Watts.
Yes.
All right, that item passes unanimously and will be added to your agenda. It will become item 6.2. And that's a discussion of resolution of support for House Bill number 6 will be item 6.2. At this point, that brings us to public comments, if there's no other agenda addition discussion. And we do have at least one request for public comment that we've received. Do you already have it?
No, sir. Mr. Patrick Drew, will you come to the mic and identify yourself?
Good evening.
Good evening.
In the wrong seat.
Must be your constituent.
How y'all doing?
All right, how are you?
This is rather new to me, but my name is Patrick Drew. I'm a community coordinator. I work for Community Renewal. I live in Friendship House. If y'all are familiar with the Friendship House, they are in numerous of our neighborhoods. And my wife and I, we run the one that's in the MLK area, which is the Cooper Road. It has come to a time for me to open my mouth. It's new, like I said, it's new to me, but the conditions in my neighborhood is just, I can't take it. You know, just riding around my neighborhood looking at the living situation and different stuff like that. And I'm what you call boots on the ground. When a roof is leaking, the elderly, they calling me. And so, man, I'm just up here trying to make a way for not just the elderly in my neighborhood, but the youth in the neighborhood as well. My wife and I, we work with over 60 kids after school from 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock, from ages 6 to 18. We are actually trying to create an apprenticeship program to also teach kids carpentry skills, electrician skills, plumbing skills, and different stuff like that. But the living situation in the neighborhood, if you guys ride around, I know y'all have your own neighborhood. It's like that in our neighborhood. But riding around the neighborhood, you know, is nothing to see in the neighborhood. So kids have nothing to look forward to. People have no reason to come back to our neighborhood. I actually, I used to be responsible for tearing down the community because I was actually involved in gangs and drugs and different stuff like that. But now I'm responsible for building the neighborhood. So building the neighborhood spiritually, mentally, working, like I said, working with the kids and trying to just create better living situation for especially the elderly. You know, we have a lot of elderly people in the community. Houses are just like falling down, different stuff like that, need a lot of repairs. And my nonprofit is the Restore Cooper Road Community Foundation. So I am trying to start a beautification project, which starts with the elderly in repairing the houses, landscaping, paint, all that different kind of stuff with no criteria. Because, you know, a lot of these people are, like I say, they're elderly, they don't have money, they actually living in their houses but not insurance, whether you know it or not. So it's actually hard for them to get people to come and work on their houses. So I've created a program that if I can get some fundings, I got a lot of people that's really willing to do the work, but I need fundings to get started. And this program that I'm creating is actually going to go beyond the Cooper Road. It's going to go Cooper Road, Cedar Grove, Queensboro, different neighborhoods. But it's empty. And all those neighborhoods that I just called, I mean, if y'all familiar with them, you ride around, the houses falling down, streets tearing up, no businesses, you know, especially on the Cooper Road. So I just really just came out to express my thoughts on the living situation in the neighborhood. You know, it's just something needs to be done. And I'm just actually one person, but I work on communication and connecting, and I have connected with a lot of people that's willing to give me a lot of man hours. But you know, everybody gonna need some money and be able to buy materials and different stuff like that. So I don't know where all of this is going, but maybe it'll help me some kind of way, and I can help some other people. So I just came up to just express my thoughts on a living situation, and it's very trashy and empty in our neighborhoods, and we need a lot of help. So.
We thank you, Mr. Drew, for those comments, and at this particular time, we can't necessarily give you feedback, but we will get with you before the meeting is over. Okay?
Okay. Well, I might have to leave early because the kids start arriving, and my wife is there alone, and I have to be there. And we have, like I said, it's over 60 kids, but we have 30 from the ages 6 to 12 that comes right after elementary school, and I have to be there to help her get started and different stuff like that. Then we have another 35 gonna come at 5 o'clock. So I may have to leave early.
It's okay. I think that guy with the red hat probably know where you live.
Oh yeah, he know where I'm
located.
at.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may, if you would, give your information to our administrator and to our clerk, and we'll make sure that we get with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank y'all.
No other public comments,
That's the only request that we've received, and so if it's okay with you, we'll move forward to new business.
please?
First item today is to discuss and potentially make recommendations regarding ordinance 6518 of 2025. That's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Solid Waste Fund and the Riverboat Fund to provide an additional appropriation for property standards and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. This item was referred by the full body. It will appear on your Thursday agenda for a public hearing and final consideration.
Okay. At this particular time, a couple of things I'm thinking of. And like I said, I do things a little bit atypical from a lot of committees. First thing first, I would like the originator of this ordinance to kind of just share what his thinking was, short version, and we go from there, take off from there, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Cawthorn. So my neighborhood's getting burned down. There's a lot of vacant houses in my neighborhood, particularly by meth users. Meth users are going into vacant houses, lighting fires when it's cold and not when it's cold, and burning the houses down. The houses sometimes get burned repeatedly. The fire department shows up, puts it out, but it doesn't get boarded up. And so people go back in to the partially burnt shell, light another fire. There was one on Columbia Street, burned 3 times before it burned down. It drove one neighbor out of her home, an elderly woman, because it burned her house such that she can't live in it. Another neighbor can still live in his house, but half of it is burned. And they're trying to recover from their insurance companies. But, you know, they're probably not going to be made whole. Since then, there has been another, since that one on Columbia Street, there was another house fire in my district caused by, I think, somebody else using meth on Highland Avenue. In District 3, very close to my house, but in District 3 on Stoner, there was a fire next to a bar that's owned by my city council representative. And that house is being torn down today. It's gone, but it was lit on fire. And it was vacant before that and not boarded up. We have a lot of vacant houses made out of wood in the middle of town. They're old houses. A lot of times they're historic. It would be a shame to tear them all down without even looking at them. But right now they're being burned down and the neighbors are being damaged as well. It's a big problem, and I think we're going through about one house a week in my neighborhood right now. One house fire a week of a historic wooden house pretty close to its neighbors, and it damages the neighbors too. We have other property standards problems in our city. There's a huge amount of dumping. There's a lot of widely dispersed litter. These are all things that degrade our quality of life, and while the dumping and the litter do not endanger human life as much, they're all sort of connected. And this ordinance is a first volley for allocating some money to try to fix that. I know the city of Shreveport has a property standards department, but they do not board up houses unless they are already taken possession of by the city, I believe. The houses in my neighborhood that are not getting boarded up are being burned down by meth heads. And it endangers the lives of the neighbors and the livability of the community, and it endangers the firefighters who are the ones who have to put them out. So it's a big problem. If it was happening all at once, it would be like the Great Chicago Fire or something, but it's happening spread out over time. And we need to do something about it, or my neighborhood is going to become vacant because nobody wants to live in a place that's likely to get burned down, and a lot of it is getting burned down. And other neighborhoods need help too. Maybe not as much from fires, but maybe just as much from fires. I'm not sure. Since we put this one on our agenda 2 weeks ago, we've had at least one other big house fire in my neighborhood caused by the same thing. So I hope we can work together to figure out a way to beef up the security of abandoned properties as a way of preventing this risk to public health and to our firefighters. I believe the fire chief is here, and I hope that we'll all get a chance to hear from him about what he sees on the ground and what kind of help they could use. And our property standards director from the city of Shreveport is here, and he can tell us what his perspective looks like. But we've got to do something about this problem. It's an emergency. And if we don't do something, there's not going to be much of my neighborhood left in 5 years because we're losing about a house a week.
Okay, thank you. For my purpose at this particular time, I would just like to defer to the legal. When we look at this particular ordinance, we see we're moving monies from point A to point B. And it says for property standards and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. So can you kind of give us the short version of how we do that, why we do that, how we can do it legally, and what other parameters could we possibly utilize monies for in this particular ordinance?
Commissioner, basically the way this is set up, it's set up to work somewhat similar. I believe you have given money to the city of Shreveport to assist in an investigation and that kind of thing. It was a specific deal in public safety. However, there are several laws that apply to property standards with regard to notice and due process. The city attorney is here, and the city property standards director are here. I would defer to them so that they can tell you how or if they can use these funds.
Please. Can the city attorney and Mr. Green come up, please?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Before we get started, I want to make absolutely crystal clear that today I will be doing the deferring to the parish attorney. I will not accept any deference. The parish attorney is certainly the authority when it comes to what the parish can and cannot do. To the question about transferring funds, I think the ordinance I just read involves an internal transfer, not a transfer directly to the city, I think. So maybe in the form that it currently exists, that involves a transfer of funds internally. So I won't address the question of whether or not those funds can be transferred directly to the city unless otherwise instructed.
Okay, basically, this does address the internal transfer. However, it's my understanding that it would be subsequently used in, say if it's in Commissioner Young's district, they would be looking to have that used within the city limits in your property standards program. So I'm basically deferring to you as to what the parameters are of your property standards program.
Right, let me just clarify. That ordinance where you see the internal transfer is transferring from one fund to another, but the payment itself would be made from the solid waste fund to the city of Shreveport. That's just our internal process on how we allocate those dollars. We're transferring to our solid waste fund because the solid waste funds cannot be used inside the city limits of Shreveport. So we had to take funds from another fund and put it in that fund since they're restricted.
Understood. Thank you. See how what deference got me. First, as sort of a precursor to any transaction between the parish and the city, there is a prohibition in the Louisiana Constitution, 1978, in Article 7, Section 14, which prohibits one taxing entity to transfer funds to another taxing entity to use those funds for any public purpose. So that's first and foremost. The way we work around that is the traditional cooperative endeavor agreement, which everyone here is very familiar with. I want to thank you for your interest in cooperating with the city of Shreveport to tackle this problem, which is absolutely and admittedly a very dangerous, very sticky, very complicated problem that that faces us all. Blight is an issue. Squatters are an issue. Individuals who occupy properties which they have no legal authority to be there, and then they misuse those properties and undertake risky behaviors inside of those properties, have a downstream consequence on themselves, the neighbors, the property owners, the neighborhoods, and the city and parish as a whole. So that is absolutely a problem, and I absolutely, Terrence and I and Clarence and SPD, we're all here, and we're thankful for the opportunity to talk about these issues and to address these issues. And we're happy for and thankful for your cooperation. In order to sort of enter into some sort of a cooperative endeavor agreement to address some of these properties, just please do keep in mind that there are prohibitions against us or any entity just boarding up properties. There's a process for that. That process is enacted through state law in 13:2575 and 13:2576. The city has passed some ordinances to bring that into effect in city ordinances, the Code of Ordinances, Section 38.5, which talk about the abatement of property. So there is a process by which we can secure structures, clean up structures, demolish structures, place liens for the monies expended. That process sends these properties after a violation has been noted. They have an opportunity to appeal those violations in environmental court, or whether it's a violation or a demolition order. So there is a due process that is afforded to the property owners, assuming they show up. So there is a process that has to be undertaken before the city of Shreveport can enter into private property and start, abating the property on behalf of a private property owner. And so, if we are looking to enter into some sort of a cooperative endeavor agreement, just please be aware that there are certain parameters that we are bound by, regardless of the process. I do want Terrence to talk more about the process if you have any additional notes. But I want to say one thing about the state's new squatter laws that were passed in the last regular session. I spent my lunchtime today on the phone with Representative Tammy Phelps and her drafting attorney down in Baton Rouge, talking through all the various concepts and issues that we could think about that would provide additional authorizing structures for how to approach blight in the city of Shreveport and in Northwest Louisiana. And I can tell you it's a challenging proposition, but one of the sort of barriers is in the Squatter Prevention Act that passed last regular session. It authorizes considering squatters to be either trespassing or committing a simple burglary if a lawful possessor says that they have told the individual to exit. They've posted signs, they've boarded up the property, and they've told someone to exit and they don't exit. Well, then that person is trespassing and probably committing simple burglary. But if there's no lawful possessor present, there's no lawful possessor reporting to SPD or to Mr. Green that they've got squatters in the house, well, we're basically stuck in the starting blocks. And so that was one of the long discussions that I had today with Representative Phelps. So there are various challenges, there are various structures that sort of outline our processes, and the city would love to partner with Parish to bring some additional resources to bear, but just please do keep in mind that there are barriers to doing so.
You guys have any other questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
Please.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to assume that perhaps your property standards ordinances work somewhat similar to the parishes. And if I'm wrong about that, please forgive me, but do you have a list of properties, I guess, that you all inspect or that are reported to you, and are they put on some kind of priority list?
Well, our priority list is usually the burn structures. But as far as a list that we keep, no, the computer basically keeps us kind of moving on the different properties. It'll tell us, hey, you need to go back out and do a reinspection or things of that nature. Now, can I print or just put a list together? Yes, I can.
And so my other question, when you're determining which properties will be addressed sooner rather than later, how is that done?
It's not necessarily saying which ones will be addressed sooner. Let's say I cite your property and you file an appeal, and I cite Mr. Cawthorn's property and he doesn't. Well, his is going to go sooner because it just went straight through the process. Let's say all notifications are the same between the two of you, all postings, all of that is the same. No other differences other than you filed an appeal. His is going to get demolished first because yours will probably get kicked out another 3 to 6 months.
Is there any priority from district to district? Okay.
No. Now, if you consider now, they're all broken down by council districts.
Right.
So B has 3 inspectors because of the size of it. A has 3 inspectors because of the size of it. And then the rest of them pretty much have 2 inspectors until you get to E and D. So that's the only priority that they have. There is no priority for B over G. So as those inspectors deal with the issues in their area, they cite them, they turn them in, and we work from there. Everything can be, I mean, as far as demolitions can be cited, written up, securings can be cited, written up, weed abatements, inoperable vehicles, care of premises where you have the houses that actually have all of the junk on the property. All of that can be cited.
And so once they're issued a citation, I'm assuming that they are cited into environmental court and have an opportunity to explain why the property is in disrepair or given a schedule by which they have a certain time limit to clean it up, something of that nature.
Right. The administrator will issue, or she'll give a judgment or ruling or whatever you want to call it. And if she says you got 30 days to have it up to this standard, or if she says, okay, I see where you're working, you have 60 days, that'll be up to her. And she also has the option to issue out fines and things like that. So she can also fine.
And would the boarding up of a property be considered sealing the property?
Sealing?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Securing.
Securing, yes.
Secure. And so what's your yearly budget?
Yearly budget? Total budget?
Yes.
About 5.9.
And so
For demolition, it's
Just within, that's your operating, that's
That's
demolitions.
everything.
That's everything.
yeah.
And so my question is, if, and this may be more appropriate for Mr. Edwards, if the parish does send over money for property standards help, can it be directed to a certain place or certain piece of property? Or does it have to go by whatever mechanism y'all use to do the properties in general?
Well, it would have to go through whatever mechanism we use. That, as it currently stands, it would have to follow the process that was just outlined to you. If we were to come up with some sort of a cooperative endeavor agreement, we could come up with different protocols between the city and the parish, perhaps to sort of come up with some things. But one of the prohibitions in the city charter is that we specifically cannot allocate funding district by district.
Which is a prohibition in the parish charter as well.
Right.
I think that's my question.
I'm sorry, could you all repeat what that budget was? I couldn't hear it.
5.9. That's everything.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a question. Hold on just a moment. As it relates, because I appreciate you bringing this forward, John Paul, Commissioner Young, because in District 3, Allendale Lakeside Community, we do have the same issue with those individuals that are inhabiting these properties and burning them down for lack of, say, like you said, with nefarious activities. I do have a question. What other steps beyond that can we do beyond just boarding them up? In my experience, if someone wants to get in the property, if we got it boarded up, they'll cut a hole in the roof. They'll cut a hole under the house. I have a property where they've cut a hole in the side to get in there. So what other steps, in your opinion, do you think that we can possibly, that can possibly be suggested? That could possibly be suggested for us to make sure that that we maximize the security of these properties, I guess you can say.
This is the challenge that we are facing just as a community, but specifically, I shared this with Commissioner John Paul Young, and it's public knowledge. It's been said in city meetings as well that the mayor of Shreveport, Mr. Tom Arsenault, has applied for and been awarded a particular opportunity through the Bloomberg Harvard Initiative. And the issue that he identified to work on through that project is blight. There is a group of individuals that is working now to sort of come up with some solutions to the exact question that you just asked. And for lack of a better term, we need a whole of community, not whole of government, but a whole of community approach. Yes, we need to secure some structures. Yes, some people are going to need to be removed or arrested. Yes, we're going to need some additional affordable housing in this market. Yes, we're going to need some additional wraparound services when it comes to mental health and veterans and families who are led by women, people of color, the mentally unstable. We've got a lot of there's a lot of facets to this particular problem. Some of it is the neighborhoods, and some of it is dumping, as has already been laid out in this conversation. Some of it is fires, and some of it is crime. It's just it's a very multifaceted, very complex problem. So if the question is what else can we do, it's literally every conceivable approach, and that's why. And I don't want it to be lost that we welcome your collaboration, your cooperation on this topic. We welcome your additional resources. We welcome your additional perspectives and the histories that you know. I discovered today on a call that your commission clerk, Mr. Everson, apparently did a deep dive on these issues like 20 years ago. I found out, or Terrence and I found out during a conversation with the Community Foundation earlier this morning, that there's someone here who's got a lot of the history of prior approaches to this problem in the room with us right now. And those are conversations that we look forward to having. So we absolutely and earnestly are thankful for this opportunity to partner, and we would love, as we come up with some solutions and as we build some additional information, to sit down and come up with a way, perhaps a cooperative endeavor agreement, to see how we can bring your resources to bear, how you can contribute, how we can all get a piece of this, and try to get our arms around this problem.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And if you guys will hang around for our next discussion, if you have time, I really appreciate that as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that once again, District 3 does have a large number of these properties as well, a large number of fires also. I am in support of this as long as we can definitely fine tune how we're going to make this work between both the city and the parish. As we can see, the public can see that both the parish and the city are open to working together. It's a matter of us being able to make it legal. This is my main thing. Thank you.
Madam President?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I too have those same sentiments in my district, and I'm sure if we pass the mic around, everyone will have an area almost everyone perhaps will have an area that needs to be addressed because of the blight issue. As you know, Caddo Parish has already declared a war on litter. And this is a part of our approach to address some of the issues that happen to be inner city, because some of us as commissioners do represent the inner city. And your constituents are not aware that you only represent the unincorporated parts of the city. They just know that they voted for you, they support you, and they want you to do something about it. We know that it's a safety issue as well. We are trying to make maximum impacts with economic development, and we know that that is something that is standing in the way. I see here where you have the unfunded needs, and there is an item with equipment that's about $100,000. And I know that that's what's on the table at this time, to be more proficient with removing some of the blight. I don't know if we would need to change some of the wording to be able to execute that cooperative endeavor agreement to be applied towards that. Is that an option?
Which piece of equipment is it?
It is under your unfunded needs
Page 7, madam.
on page 7. And the equipment is the Kawasaki ProTurn 360, 26 horsepower. Are you familiar with that?
If that's the boom truck, we got it.
Okay. Transaxle, Pro Stance 32, 3-deck Parker.
If I may, the thing is, what I've heard, two of you all say basically is that you're supporting this, but I guess the question is, at this particular time, how do we make this happen? And it don't seem like we have solidified it. And again, through the CEA, that's one of the ways of solidifying it. And, you know, to not beat this horse to death, because again, we have the chief sitting back there, and I know he probably need to get on to bigger and better things than sitting here with us. So, quit shaking your head, I see.
Yes, sir.
We got it.
All of these needs have already been met.
The dump trailer, the boom truck and everything, we actually do have it now.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. That will be it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chief, can you come up? Thank you, both. And I see SPD back there as well, so y'all a team, I know.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Chief, I know in just kind of passing, I was talking to you about this particular ordinance, and you shared there are some things that that really will work concerning this particular ordinance. Can you just kind of share with us your take on everything that's been discussed thus far?
Sure. So as Attorney Marcus has pointed out, of course, we're in collaboration with the Bloomberg Harvard deal on blight. It represented almost 30-something cities. And there are other cities that are having the exact same problem. So we talked about things such as the boards, lag screws, which come to find out property standards are already using. So it's a little bit more complicated than just getting a board, cutting it, and putting a nail through it. Of course, just like you stated, they begin to take those down. They'll cut a hole through it, or they can just pull it, with one hand. So having this proper equipment, proper tools to be able to secure those homes goes a long way. Problem that we do see, especially if we're talking about demolition, is we fought 63 vacant house fires on last year. 63 of them were throughout the city, with a large concentration, of course, in the Highland neighborhood. But this has been an issue for several years throughout the city of Shreveport. What we do find out a lot of times is they return back to I would call it the crime scene. So if it's not, and we've had, of course, many people don't want to demolish these homes as soon as they catch fire, but that's the only way they don't return back to that home. We've had great results with having, unfortunately, some apartment complexes torn immediately down. They didn't return back to those to burn it again. What we face is when they're in these homes for whatever reason, whether or not it's drugs, alcohol, or just trying to stay warm. And what we've seen is that a lot of these fires are taking place when they're not trying to stay warm. We've experienced a lot of them during some of the summer months. But they're going back into those homes, and all we're doing is flushing them to a different area. So if we don't get a hold on this very quickly, we're going to see a firefighter injured or killed, police officer injured or killed, because on top of just the blight, these are unsafe structures, especially in that Highland neighborhood where a lot of those homes sit up off the ground. They're two-story homes, older wood, heavier fire load. We'll have a firefighter that will eventually fall through one of those, fall from a second floor to a first floor, from a first floor down through the ground. So that is one of those things we are very concerned about, and we're reaching out to as many homeowners associations. We have to be able to identify. I mean, Highland and Jordan is one of them. I mean, I simply went to that house. Guy walked up and said, "Hey, what you need?" And he said, "You need us to leave?" And I said, "Do y'all have permission to be here?" Well, of course he said yes. I mean, I would have said yes too. Well, at that point, I don't have owner's information. I cannot verify that. I can't make them leave or whatever. And I think that's the same thing that the police officers are facing also, is they're not boarded up. We don't know who the owner is, and there's no trespassing sign. Had there been a trespassing sign, no trespassing sign, it would have made a better situation where we could have actually handled that.
Hi, I'm Assistant Chief of Police Colette Kelly, standing in for Chief Smith, who had a conflict. And Chief Reese actually touched upon a lot of things that I wanted to say. As far as the police role, we try to prevent some of these things, but one of the biggest problems we have is that we don't know who the owners are. The owners are not identified. So we can't verify one way or the other if they had expressed legal or implied authorization to be on those premises. So one of the things we have to do is maybe collaboratively work together to identify these vacant homes and then see if we can identify the owners. Many of the owners have moved away from the neighborhoods or even out of the state. So it becomes difficult to actually know who the owners are if we want to, say, pursue charges for trespassing or whatever. You have to have someone willing to say, that's my property, and they're not legally supposed to be there, and I don't want them there. So it becomes very convoluted for the police in terms of trying to identify homeowners. Another thing is, if we can identify homeowners, then we have a program called the Signs Program, where you say it's okay for the police to come on my property and tell the people that they're not to be there. Okay, but we have to have that written permission from the owner. And as he said, it needs to be posted. No trespassing. So we have a difficult time as it relates to people that don't have a legal right or ownership or even some kind of lease agreement to be on these premises. It's very difficult on the spot to be able to deal with that, because we have to have someone willing to say, that's my property, or I'm a manager for this property, and I have the authority to say that they're not supposed to be here. Many times we don't get that, and it makes it very difficult to move forward. But if you all can come up with a plan where we identify these vacant houses and come up with owners, that we can get owners involved and say, yes, you all have my permission because no one's supposed to be there, and you can tell them to leave or you can arrest them because they're there. That would help to eliminate some of the problems. But as the city attorney said, it's a very convoluted matter. It's going to take a lot of collaboration and a whole lot of working together to address it, to come to a real resolution instead of just putting Band-Aids on it. Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Frazier?
To that point, commissioners, looking online, there's actually a ordinance at the city of Shreveport for a vacant property registry, which would fine property owners for not registering their property as vacant and not taking certain steps. But that through a program like that, you can get the owners identified and perhaps get some of those trespassing signs up. And it's my understanding that that ordinance was tabled this summer. So I would urge, if that is something that you all are interested in, getting with your counterpart on the city council or having some of the residents in your district where this would be effective come down and talk to them at their meetings to urge them to pass such an ordinance so the police can have that type of assistance and those trespassing signs so that they can make some arrests when they find those persons at their property.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you. I forgot your name. I'm sorry, officer.
Chief Kelly.
Chief Kelly. If there's a no trespassing sign on a house, can the police remove people from that house? Or does it have to be a registered no trespassing sign by the owner with the city?
The no trespassing sign certainly helps, and that gives us authority to go in and check other things like warrants and whatever if they're there. But we still need to have the identity of someone with the authority to say, no, they should not have been there. Does that make sense? Because even if we were to make an arrest, someone would have to appear in court and follow up on it. So it's not just, the signs are real big, because if we see the signs, we have the authority then to go and say, who are you and why are you here? That gives us a way in, okay? Readily a way in. But if we're going to complete that circle, we need to know someone with the authority to say, yes, they should not have been there, and please go ahead and arrest and ask them to leave.
So to be clear, if there's for example, if there's a house with no windows, but it's a structure, but all the windows, all the glass is gone, and it has a no trespassing sign, just says no trespassing, and it's posted over the door, but there's no doorway. Can you remove people from that house?
That becomes convoluted, because remember, squatters have to understand that they're not welcome there. And if it's no doors, no windows, and nothing to prevent them from going in, it's not as cut and dry as you would like for it to be. Does that make sense?
What if
Here's
there's a no
structure.
trespassing sign
If,
over the door? There's
that's-
not a door over the doorway. There's a no
if
trespassing
there's a no
sign.
trespassing sign, that gives us a way in. But still, we need to have someone that says, this is my property and they should not be here.
They
Okay.
should. They have to say that for them,
Yeah.
like when it comes to convicting them in court for trespassing, or to remove them from the property.
Yeah, even if we're going to make arrests, we have to have a victim, a complainant, and we can't be it. SBD can't say they didn't have the right to be there. But what I was telling you earlier is that we do have a program in place, our signs programs, where you can get owners to sign up and say, and we would have it on file. If we went to that resident and it was a no trespassing sign, it would be a sign with a number. We would readily know that they were registered with the police department and they had given us permission to stop violators from loitering and being on our property, trespassing on our property.
Okay. Any other
I'd
questions?
like to ask Clerk Everson to speak
For what?
because he's an expert in these matters.
If you were to have the ability to arrest someone for trespassing, what's the likely outcome of that arrest? I mean, we're already oversubscribed in Caddo Parish Correctional Center.
That's a very good question, because criminal trespass is a misdemeanor offense. And the first offense, I don't want to misquote, but I think it's like less than $100 in less than 30 days. And then it goes up to a second offense where you can get no more than 60 days and no more than $300 fine. And it goes up like that. But they're misdemeanor offenses. They don't it's not,
They're not going to be
in my
retained for the
opinion, a
long
real
term.
deterrent, because they're going to go to jail, they're going to stay for a day or two, but then they can go back to that structure and hope that they don't get caught again for a little while. So it's a never-ending cycle. So I appreciate you guys for saying, hey, let's get together and let's collaborate and let's come up with some real solutions, because it's not a cut and dry situation, and it will take various entities working together along with the police and fire to make this something that will be palatable in the future, where we don't have to keep revisiting and we don't have to lose lives and properties unnecessarily.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right. And thank you both for coming, because I know you have very busy schedules. And the thing is that at this particular time, we thank everybody for coming and sharing the information. And it's very obvious to me we have a lot more work to do before we finalize this via a CEA. But the thing is, again, it's a great idea. It's the right idea, and it must happen at some point, okay? It's just a matter of the proper language. In addition to, as our attorney shared with us, the ordinance that was tabled possibly by the city, we need to get back to that and talk with them and see what we need to do so we could kind of mirror the same thing and kind of go from there as well, please.
Mr. Chair, just one quick question I have about the science program. Is there a direct link?
Yes,
that
it's
we
actually
could-
on our website.
Okay.
It's our Community-Oriented Policing Bureau that has that endeavor. And in fact, there have been times when we have taken the initiative to go out to business owners and different entities to encourage them to please sign up.
Yes.
So that we know places where they frequent and they're not like really trying to do anything constructive.
Right.
So we try to get permission ahead of time so that we'll be able to go into those places and address the loitering and kind of break up the crowd.
Okay. Any areas that they're not authorized or have prior authorization to be. So that's one way that we can help until we can get back. I'm sure that they have to have this untable, as Attorney Frazier mentioned, about the vacant property registry. Yes. And so in the meantime, that is one thing that we can work on doing, making sure that we help to promote this program.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, mine is more of a question. I know that's probably not my place. And I think I understood Commissioner John Paul Young. What's the difference, and it's more for police, what's the difference between the one the city has, the city ordinance sign, and the one that you just buy from Home Depot and they put their number on? Because I've noticed that a lot in Highland, the no trespassing sign, and there's a number on it. Is there a difference?
Well, the difference with the police sign program is that it's actually registered to the police department. Any officer can readily check it to verify that it is legit. We have a contact information for a representative, a owner, or a manager that we can readily contact and let them know what's going on and say, hey, we found them there. And yes, they're not supposed to be trespassing. The ones that maybe someone that puts up on their own, we won't ignore it. If there's a number to call, we will call it and try to verify that they're the actual owner and that they want us to take actions. But I guess the difference is official. One's official and one is just self-initiated, maybe.
Thank you. Ms. Epperson?
I'd just like to state that the Pines Road Area Business Association, we utilize Ms. Caitlin Ellis,
Okay.
community-oriented policing.
Yes.
We had the person that was sleeping in the foyer of the Huntington Park Post Office, and we got them registered. We got the official signs in the window, and that's been cleaned up. So I would urge you all to explore that option with the community-oriented policing.
It's a tool that makes it easier for police to address those type of situations.
Thank you. Any other questions, please?
Thank you, Commissioner Gothard. I'd like to ask our clerk to share his thoughts about this. He's an expert in the matter.
Short version.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to discuss offline. You know, if this is something that y'all wanted to move forward with, I could dust my notes off. I did have some extensive notes from the past, but there are a lot of these things that we talked about are obviously not new problems, and they've expanded over the years, but there are a lot of communities who've dealt with similar challenges, and there are some strategies that we know to be effective. So certainly, I'd be happy to participate in that effort.
Okay, I have a follow-up question, not for the clerk. Captain, could you tell me, is there such a thing in the police department as constructive notice of abandonment or constructive notice of trespass in which a house, for instance, is not connected to electricity, is not connected to water, has no doors or windows, and there's people in there? Does the police department ever presume that such an occupation is a trespass, Or do you assume instead that they may be legitimate rent payers in a house with no windows or electricity or water?
The police officers are not trained to assume or presume anything. We are trained to enforce laws, okay? And that's what we have to do. We have to take into the totality of the circumstances. And right now, there's a real issue in our city. Like I said, 3 apartment complexes shut down. Those people were not people of means. They didn't have anywhere to go. So they went and found places where they could go. And we don't advocate it, but if we can't get in touch with the owner and that says, I don't want them there, they can't be there, we're not just gonna go in there and assume that they're not supposed to be there, okay? There has to be an express legal or an implied authorization that they can be there. And like Chief Reese said, they're all gonna tell you, oh yes, I know the owner. They said, we've even had people to say, I got a lease agreement. I signed it online. They can't produce it, of course, but we can't go on what we speculate or what we believe to be true. We have to be able to prove that what they're saying is not true, that someone didn't give them permission to be there.
Thank you very much. At this time, can we do one of two things? Either get a motion to move this forward, or get a motion to make it a continuation. Because the thing is, again, it's very obvious to me right now, we don't have everything we need. Please.
I'd like to move that we continue ongoing discussion relative to this issue.
Second.
Okay. Probably moving second. Please.
Thank you. There are some simple facts going on in my neighborhood. There are dozens and dozens of empty structures. One of them will be burned down in the next 5 days because it's going to be cold. A house in my neighborhood will be burned down in the next 5 days, maybe more than one. The neighbors' houses may be damaged. They may be forced out of their homes. Those houses will not be rebuilt. They will be left vacant. It is very obvious when a house is vacant. You would have to be an absolute fool not to be able to tell that a house with no door and no windows and no electricity and no water is vacant, and that the people who are living there, if they're living there, starting fires, have no business being there and should be removed. We need to all wake up. My neighborhood is being burned down.
Okay, thank you very much. And the thing is, again, I don't think there are any fools anywhere around here, but the point being, again, going forward, we have a motion. Can we get a vote?
Okay, Commissioner, this is the motion to continue the conversation. Is there a date set for it? Or, like we usually, when you make a motion, there's, is it our next meeting? Is it to a certain date?
2 meetings. Is there anything scheduled for Thursday?
No, but we are short-staffed this week with people out sick, and we would.
The Tuesday of the next set of meetings, okay, whatever date that is. I mean Monday.
Tuesday of the next cycle?
I mean the Monday.
Or the preceding the next work session?
Yes, there you
go. Okay. Are we ready for the vote? I'm sorry, I just needed that clarification on the record. Are we ready for the vote now?
Please.
All right, Commissioner Coffin.
Yes.
Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Crackman.
Yes.
And Commissioner Gage-Watts.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries with the 6 members all in support, none in opposition, and brings us to the item 6.2, which is the resolution of support for House Bill number 6.
Okay, 6.6. I would defer to Commissioner Thomas at this particular time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I appreciate about the discussion today is it shows that on the level of the city, the parish, and the state, we are collaborating with our counterparts to try to solve these issues. There are numerous issues that, as it relates to safety, to the housing standards in our city and our area, not only in our area, but our parish and our state. that need to be addressed. One issue that I want to bring up is this House Bill 6. As it was mentioned earlier by Chief Kelly, we've just had another 3 apartment complexes to close down. These individuals have to be relocated. What's been going on is between the city and the parish, we've been trying to think of creative ways to accommodate these individuals and try to find new housing for them. What I appreciate about House Bill 6 is it is an attempt to criminalize the fact that there are citizens in Caddo Parish, ideally here in the city of Shreveport, that are paying their bills. They're not doing anything wrong in the process of this. They are paying their rent, which also includes their utilities, some water, some gas, some electricity, some all 3. And what we're finding is that there are landlords that are not then doing their due diligence of paying the utility companies with these funds that they've collected from the citizens. I think it's appalling that someone would do that. What's even worse is that these landlords are abandoning these apartment complexes and abandoning these tenants. Not only just with the apartment complexes, I think that this can also reach down to what Commissioner John Paul Young was speaking about as far as these abandoned properties, and people are just being able to vagrantly just move in there and burn them down. Not only is it just the houses, but it's also the apartment complexes. For a recent, the Centenary Gardens apartment complex, you had some tenants that were still living there. You had another group of units that the buildings were empty, and you had people living in there, and one of them caught fire as well. What this would do, once again, is it will criminalize this, and it will make it a criminal offense for someone to misappropriate funds from these citizens that are utilized to pay utilities. The reason why I asked our city attorney to stay behind, because I wanted to get more clarity. I've spoken extensively with Councilwoman, Council Chair Tabitha Taylor about this. We've been speaking with our counterpart, Representative Stephen Jackson. We've been speaking with Representative Walters as well as Representative Phelps about ways that we can try to make this issue, that we can solve this issue. So if you don't mind, if you'd like to share how this would help you guys in your fight in the efforts that you and the council have been trying to do to address this issue. And I know it's kind of on the spot, so I don't mean to expect you to have.
It's okay. I was looking around for a criminal attorney to defer to. So I'm aware of this act or this bill via some news reports and some limited conversation with Representative Jackson, as well as the conversation I had earlier today with Representative Phelps and her drafting staffer, who brought up this bill. It is in part a racketeering bill, which is absolutely 1,000% outside of my wheelhouse. But the discussion that we had today, that is sort of the ongoing challenge of House Bill 6, is the fact that the vast majority of these apartment complexes, these multi-unit apartment complexes, are held by LLCs. And racketeering is one of the ways that you can attempt to pierce the corporate veil. But because most of these multi-unit apartment complexes are held by LLCs, ultimately, if you're able to find someone guilty under this statute, you're normally limited to only a fine as a sentence, because you can't put a company in jail. So racketeering, however, is an avenue through which you can pierce the corporate veil. And in the situation, both the more recent one and the situation that we dealt with in the city of Shreveport last year, where we had a multi-unit apartment we had 4 multi-unit apartment complexes which were owned by the same property owner, which was an LLC, but that LLC only had 1 member manager. And several of those properties were being managed by a property manager. The discussion that we had today was about whether or not, first of all, can you conspire with yourself? So can a one-member manager LLC be guilty of racketeering if one of the elements is conspiracy? Secondly, if and how you get around that, and in this case, we probably could have gotten around it because of the property manager's involvement in that situation. And then the other piece is, let's say hypothetically you're able to get a conviction under this statute or any other criminal statute. The owner, in question, is an LLC. So the maximum penalty that you're going to be able to pursue against an LLC is going to be a fine, because you can't put the LLC in jail unless you're able to pierce the corporate veil, which is to get beyond the legal fiction that an LLC is the actor as opposed to a human being. And so, not to, really interest you guys in the inner workings of the legal analysis, but that's a part of the legal challenge that we address here. And if your head isn't spinning enough yet, oftentimes what happens when we get to the stage that we're at with the shutoffs is those individual LLCs will sell to another LLC so as to avoid even any sort of responsibility on the part of the LLC. So there's an even deeper challenge to tracking down the actual individuals who are responsible for this. Frankly, I think that the only real solution to this particular issue is to require individually metered units, individually water metered apartment units, whereby people pay the water bill themselves as opposed to paying rent and then for the landlord to pay the water bill. But that's a very costly solution. Okay, so it's not a silver bullet. That's a very costly solution, and it would probably be a barrier to additional development, which is something that should be considered soberly. But this particular House Bill 6, I absolutely think it's an additional tool in the toolbox. It definitely helps us get closer to holding accountable those who are taking advantage of our citizens. But it has its own challenges as well.
Thank you so much, sir.
No problem.
So once again, like I said, this is a bill that I would like for us to be able to issue a resolution of support for this. I know a lot of times we send resolutions after the fact of things being discussed. This is actively going to committee, and I would like to see us, if you all support this, be able to get this to the committee beforehand. I welcome the discussion. I welcome any of your thoughts. I welcome any of your input on this as we draft and draft our opinion on this. But I would like to see us support this bill. Anything that we can do to try to help curb this issue. One thing I do know is that we can't afford to keep relocating people every time an apartment complex closes every week. Ideally, when we just did this with the Jolie apartment complex, a lot of those individuals were moved to Southern Oaks, and Southern Oaks is now on the list and has received a shutoff notice. To me, that's really, that makes no sense to spend money to relocate people to somewhere that they're going to end up having to get relocated again. So that's one of the reasons why I would support this, and I welcome any of your feedback or any of your discussion about this matter.
Okay, please.
Thank you so much. I didn't bring my good glasses, so this resolution is in very, very small print, so you have to forgive me if I've overlooked something. The attorney just conveyed to us how that it's improbable that we're going to actually be able to exact some criminal penalties on LLCs. But it seems to me that an individual who owns some rental property, and if he is receiving the rent plus compensation for the water, then he can indeed be at great risk of spending 10 years in prison, $100,000. So again, as long as I'm in public life, I'm always going to be looking out for the little guy, for people who are treated disproportionately to the powerful people. And it seems to me that the people who are really responsible for this type of a tragic situation, they're getting away scot-free. But you take a little old lady whose husband was in the rental business, and she may not be competent in that area, and she may be elderly, and she's not as competent in collecting the rent. This woman could end up facing criminal charges that could put her at significant risk, could bankrupt her. And so I just think that this is rather a knee-jerk reaction to a terrible problem. I don't know where the politicians were months ago when we first realized this, but it seems that as politicians usually do, you know, they're trying to grab the headlines and make it look like they're doing something, and hadn't really given it sufficient thought as to how the little guy may be impacted, and the people who are actually the culprits of this type of activity are getting away scot-free. I just don't think it's a well thought out piece of legislation, and I cannot support it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will just point out, with your caveat that the print is small, I think I saw the word inadvertently misappropriated funds. So your example, I assume the unwitting violation of the scenario you painted out would not be a crime if it was an accident or inadvertent.
Right.
Was that the intention of the legislation?
Yes, correct. This is not to punish anyone that simply forgot or, you know, like you said, unwittingly did that. This is to literally address this issue that we're having now. This is to address the fact that an apartment complex owes the water department $189,000. And, you know, the little guy, as you stated, would have been paying their rent for the past 8 months, and now they receive a notice that the water is getting shut off in 2 days. I think that's very unfair to the little guy. Like you said, the person that's responsible for this is getting off scot-free, especially once they sell that property over to someone else. They now have released themselves of any liability for that. Not only that, this legislation is being discussed and crafted right now further at the state level. That's why I feel it's important for us to be a part of the conversation, especially with the issue that we're having in Caddo Parish, to address it while it's being discussed, just as we're discussing it now. I think it's very important for us to be a part of that conversation now, as opposed to afterwards and after the fact. The situation we have right here is dire enough for us to have at least a comment, if not a seat at the table, at least a comment that's being discussed. And I welcome and I appreciate, you know, your viewpoint on that, but I don't think it's designed to punish small landlords. Now, if a landlord has collected a tenant's rent all year long and has not paid their utilities and they've collected rent for that, once again, it says that they've misappropriated that tenant's funds, that they've paid them for utilities. Their water shouldn't be cut off if they're the ones that, if they've been paying the landlord that rent.
If I may just clarification, I think it's not really a function of large or small, it's a function of knowingly and intentionally misappropriating funds, large or small.
Correct. That's correct. And I really appreciate the fact that most of my colleagues are here today while we discuss this matter. Like I said, it's important to hear everybody's perspective on it, and I appreciate that point that you brought up.
Okay, any additional comments?
Are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner, and I'm sorry, who was the second on that motion?
I don't think that was the one.
Who? I had Commissioner Gage Rochester the second on the first motion, but I wasn't sure if I heard the second on. I just didn't hear it.
Did you?
Okay, I heard it, but I didn't see it.
I'll
Maybe we
restate
haven't
because
done a motion. I don't think we did a
Yeah,
motion.
I don't think we did a motion. I spoke.
Maybe, I think you just discussed that.
I just discussed it. I didn't propose a motion.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I did hear a motion.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, if you can, I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the full body and to direct our parish attorney to draft a resolution for House Bill 6. And I welcome any additional comments or amendments from my colleagues.
I second it.
Properly moving second. Vote.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioner Cothran
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Crankman,
Yes.
and Commissioner Gage Watts.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries with 6 in support, none in opposition. And that is the final item on our agenda
Okay.
today.
The meeting is adjourned at 3:19.
All right. Let me stretch my legs for 3